This is the second in the series of striper worm patterns, and it's essentially the same, most of it, as the striper worm, the first one we did. Again, using a strip of bunny fur, and again cutting the bunny fur in half to reduce the width of the skin side so that it will move better in the water. Just about down the middle. This strip of bunny fur is still twice the length of the hook shank in overall length, and I've cut it neatly in half. Again, moistening, because as you make that cut, you cut a little bit of hair free, and you don't need all that. We'll set that aside for a second, since I didn't manage to wrap my hook shank with thread before I started. We'll do it now. Right back to the point, again, between the point of the hook and the back edge of the barb. And again, especially if you haven't seen the other video, cutting the fur off a little bit of the top side of the rabbit strip so that I have a piece that's skin only, which I can then tie down on top of the hook shank. During the course of a worm spawn event, the worms slowly work their way towards the surface. And when they do that, they are swimming along near surface and are disturbing the surface. You'll see little V-wings, or what may look like raindrops on the surface of the water. We're going to, again, as soon as I find my head cement, there it is, put a little bit of head cement right on top of that wrapped down piece of bunny. Tie in a little of this root beer colored midge cactus chenille. Wrap it forward. This is a piece I saved from the last fly that I tied, and it may be too short. And if it is, it provides a great teaching opportunity for what to do when you don't have enough of something. And let's just take a wrap with your thread. Get another piece and tie it in to finish. There's no need to throw away perfectly good stuff, because it might not be long enough. A couple of turns, and we've done enough with that. Now, when we were tying the striper worm, here we tied chenille in immediately. This is called the gurgler striper worm. In other words, it has a little gurgler-like head on it. This is a piece of closed cell foam, which I'm going to trim to a point on one end. And I'm going to tie this in, laid back over the top of the fly. And by squeezing this thick piece of foam as I put it in place, I can reduce the amount of foam at the tie-in point so that it's squeezed down like that. That allows space for me to go back to my chenille, tie it in, and again make 3 or 4 wraps with the chenille. So I essentially have the striper worm, which I did earlier, with a piece of foam sticking out the back. And we're just going to take this piece of foam and loosely, leaving a nice rounded edge back here that sticks back to the middle of the fly, tie it in, pinching the sides together so that as you tie it down and apply some pressure with the thread, it squeezes the foam together. A good 5 turns or so, and make sure that it lays flat on top. Then pull it back and make a bunch of wraps underneath and tight up against a piece of foam. You want it to stand up in the air quite a bit, sort of like that. When you trim this, it's going to be leaning forward, but erect enough to push water every time you pull it through the surface. So a series of very short strips let you make a V-wake and the tail moves at the same time. Straight strips with the tail a thinner bit of skin will just naturally snake along through the water. So you don't have to do much of anything to make that happen. Then again, tie it off at this point. I find this is effective later in the hatch, sometimes when it's still light, quite often in fact, and should say worm spawn, not hatch. Nothing's hatching yet. And then some head cement on the wraps, and you can be fairly liberal with it because you want that to hold all of this in place. I also slide the brush through on the top to coat that material. Now you want some height to this little lip we're going to create on the front, but not too much because it'll spin when you cast. So what I do is I start at an angle on the inside and I rotate the scissors around to an angle on the other side, which gives you a rounded edge and a little lip to move the water. Again, there's a little black spot still at the tail end of the fly, so a permanent marker making a black spot is all you need, and you can add color as we did with the striper worm in the middle of the fly if you feel it's necessary, or the fish won't eat it for some reason. But that's all there is to creating a surface or near surface fly that creates disturbance on the top of the water, just like the spawning worms do.